Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
So Barb's having some issues getting on. So it might be a couple minutes.
It looks like I see Barb now. Barb, are you on?
So I don't know, Kate. I mean, obviously you have Andrew here, and I know Barb is. Oh, maybe she's not getting on now. Barb, are you there?
Give her one more minute.
Well, it's showing that she's on.
Yeah.
I'm having computer issues.
Okay, there she is.
I'm on a different computer, and obviously it doesn't like this.
We can hear you.
Okay.
And I know Danielle just emailed me and she should be joining soon as well.
It looks like we have, do we have a quorum? Yeah,
Yes.
we do anyways. Kate,
Yes.
can you call the meeting to order? Or I called the meeting to order, I'm sorry.
Yes, and then I do roll call.
Yes, 6:04. Will you please call the roll?
Steve Carell,
Here.
Rhea Ortner, here. Barb Hart,
Here?
Andrew Duarte,
Here.
Ron Mitchell,
Here.
Danielle Kraus, Steve Roundtree,
Here.
Jonathan Baumhover.
Hey, you may not have seen it, but Danielle just jumped on.
Okay. Danielle Kraus, have you joined us?
Yes, here.
Okay, perfect.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? If not, I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second. And Kate, can you call the roll?
Steve Carell,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duarte,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Great. And now we move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Does anyone have any public comment on non-agenda items? Okay. I'm not hearing or seeing any, so let's move on to the next item. And I believe Kate will be introducing this.
All right, this evening we have a board member election, and you'll see in your packet applications from David Seitz and Catherine Vallon. The way that we've done this before, and Steve brought this up earlier, so I thought I'd bring this, is that everyone has reviewed the packet with the information, and we talked about potentially going around in the circle and asking questions, being able, each board member having the option to ask her questions, and making sure that we provide the same question to each applicant so as to, you know, give them an equal opportunity to answer. Does that sound good to Barb? Does anybody else have any comments?
That sounds great to me.
Is that how we're supposed to do it, Miranda? I just want to make sure.
Yes, that would be the most appropriate way to do that.
All right, we just wanted to confirm. All right. So Barb, I'll kind of let you take over.
Great. If we can just start with a quick introduction from each person, Dr. Vallon and David Seitz. Let's see on my list. Catherine is one side over from David, so let's have Dr. Vallon start, and then just a quick introduction, and then we'll move on to David with the same thing. I'm not sure if anyone is muted. I can't see that stuff, Miranda.
So Catherine is not, Dr. Vallon's not muted, but also doesn't, let's see.
It's doing the same thing it was doing to Barb earlier, where the mute button I see pops up and then it goes away and then it pops up and goes away.
And let me see.
Yeah, I don't know, because Barb.
I'm gonna unmute everyone, and then if everyone can then remute themselves. Oh, I thought I just did. I tried to unmute all. Weird, we're having a weird night.
David, are you able to?
I was gonna say maybe we could have Catherine call back in potentially, if that's all right, because that seemed to cure your issue.
I had to log all the way out and then log back in. and
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking might need to happen since we're not hearing anything.
Maybe it's just a technical thing tonight. Do you want to, let's see. Since that is the first action item, should we?
Yeah, because it seems that we lost
Yeah.
David as well.
Should we maybe try to do the quick action items that are the executive director's signature?
Sure.
Just run through those couple of quick ones that we know.
Oh, wait, Catherine just put up a chat. Hold on. Let's see what she said. She says I'm speaking, but nothing happens. I'm gonna see if
So I don't know if David can speak, I can always call through.
well, David got off the call. That's what I don't know if he was having issues as well. I'm responding to Catherine. Okay. I asked her to log out and call back in. Okay. Now I am concerned about David, what happened there. All right, we can move on and wait and see if Catherine does come back in. Here, the next agenda item is the Netherland Green Business Program. Do we want to do that or do we want to do signature authority? Barb?
I think do the signature authority because it'll probably be kind of a just
A
real
quicker
quick.
one to, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a couple on there that we could bounce through pretty quickly and then go into the longer ones and try to get these guys connected.
Okay. So.
This is David Seitz joining by phone.
Great. We're so glad we didn't lose you. So we're waiting for Catherine to still join, and so we're moving on to the next agenda item for a moment, David, and then we're going to come back so that we have both you and Catherine. All right. So this is the item that I brought up last month as a discussion item, and I'm bringing it back as an action item with the attached policy and verbiage for you guys to review about providing signature authority to the executive director up to $10,000 so that I can write checks and do the monthly payables a little bit more efficiently for everybody. So I'm open to any comments or questions or any words you'd like me to change or just your comments on this item.
I didn't get a chance to read this, Ron. I very much want to, as the treasurer, view every invoice and bill that comes in. I'm not sure that was part of this or not.
You will. Yeah, all that process will still be the same. That's what we talked about last month, and that's what's in there as well, is that the same process will always be followed, that I'll still always have to have at least 2 of the 3 other signatories review and look at this and give me the approval before I could pay any of the monthly payables. That would all be the same. It would just be the not running around getting 2
I don't object to that as long as I approve the invoice.
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, that would still be the process.
Okay, I just want to be sure that I get the approval process
Mhm.
squared, that
We did not get rid of checks and balances.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Steve Carell. I had a question on the wording of that document. And
Okay.
I was wondering if you mean it to be that only you or only the executive director shall be able to sign checks with prior, as one
No,
person?
it was more the way I was meaning it was more that only the executive director would be the only person that could be a single
Sole
signature.
signer.
It-
Okay.
a sole signer, and maybe that's the better way to tweak it. So that's why I really do want your comments, because that's really helpful that when you read it, that's what struck you. So that's helpful.
Yeah, I thought it was a tiny bit ambiguous as to whether the other people mentioned up above would be able to also be single signers. So I think that was my only comment to clarify that, that only the executive director has the sole signing ability, something to that effect.
Okay.
Thanks. That was my only comment.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions or comments?
Sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing screen, just in case anyone didn't have it. There you go. You're not looking at it, so there you go.
Well,
Back
I'm
at the other-
looking at my agenda, so I actually can't see that right now. So
Okay, well, now it's on the screen.
it's just, technical tonight. So do I hear any more comments on this?
If there are no other comments, let's see. Do we need to have public comment on it since it's an action item? Yes?
I would think so. I just back
Yeah.
to, I think, not to go backwards, but to Steve's question, because on the other in the agenda, basically signature authority to the executive director for up to 10,000. But as you said, Kate, you're still getting prior approval. That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if we want to add that if we want or need to add that language, or if that going
It
back
is
to the
the
actual
next-
action item is
It's on the next, if you go to the bottom of the next page of the AIM, the delegation of signing authority, are you looking at that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at that. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's all. I just wanted to check in. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Danielle. I'm going to point out that it's marked as a discussion if we want to change it to an action item.
Oh, sorry. That's a typo on this. It is an action item. It's in the agenda as an action item. That's just a typo on the form, on the AIM, but it is an action item.
Does anyone else have any further questions for Kate?
I'm not clear whether or not this has that the treasurer will view each and every individual invoice.
It doesn't say the treasurer, no, but it says that the same process. So here, let me. Right.
I would like to have it include the treasurer to view
Okay.
invoices.
We can add that. I can add that two of the three, and those three have to be one of the signatories.
The
Because-
treasurer has to be one of the, not for signing, just for approving the invoices.
That actually doesn't speed up the process at all, I don't think. So then I question if this is going to help.
No, he's not saying he has to sign it. He's still saying that they want to review it, which is the same process we have. That's not. And what we're looking for this to expedite things is my signature on the check. So I don't see that hampering it, because that isn't the issue. What's hampering things is tracking down 2 to 3 people to get signing checks. That's really the issue that we run into.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Is there any public comment on this? No, hearing none. I would entertain a motion to approve this delegation of signing authority. If someone wants to,
I second.
we need a motion first.
Oh,
Yeah, but I think we want to include in the motion the edits that Ron was mentioning.
Miranda, do you have the wording that we should use for that?
I think you can just say that you, if Kate has it captured in the minutes, that you move to approve the signature authority as amended by Ron Mitchell.
Okay,
Kate, you need it recapped. I mean, I guess.
great. Because I have it in the minutes,
Yeah,
so
I figured.
we
Okay.
can do it that way.
Okay. Does someone want to make that motion?
I move that the executive director be allowed to sign checks up to $10,000 as a sole signator, as long as approval has been received from the treasurer and any one of two other of the board members.
I second.
Great, thank you. And Kate, will you call a roll on that?
Yes. Steve Carreau,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Dwart,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell, Ron Mitchell?
Yes.
Okay. Danielle Kraus,
yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. So I think I see Catherine and Dave on here. So we can go back to our first item, the board election, and go back and try again with Catherine giving a small intro to us.
Hi, I'm on the phone because I'm not sure if the computer's working. So if we're getting feedback, let me know and I'll try doing one or the other. But anyhow, I have been in business in Netherlands since 1988 as a chiropractor. Lived in Netherlands for a long time. I'm actually living in Gilpin County now, but still have my practice in Netherlands. And many years ago, before having a child, I was pretty active with the Chamber of Commerce, and when the NDDA was first starting up, and then basically stepped away and spent a lot more time going to ball games and things with my son. But now that he's grown and graduated college and an adult, I find myself wanting to try and do what I can to help make our town the best we can.
Thank you. David, would you like to give an introduction?
Seems like it might just be one of those technical nights.
Yeah.
Does David have the call-in information if he wants to call in instead of trying to do it through WebEx?
He should. I sent the same. Let's see if I can. David, can you hear us? Can you do you have the call-in information? Can you go to the chat and let us know if you need something?
Okay. Should we hold on for a minute, or should we try another quick action item that we have tonight? I'm not really
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean, you
know.
have Garrett here. I don't know if you wanted to just try to, I mean, with this unfortunate, but if you just wanted to try that.
Yeah, we
Well,
can.
and
we
then
can
David,
go.
I can always three-way call David in if needed.
I'm trying
Barb-
right now.
Oh,
Oh, you're
Hello.
right there. You're there.
We hear him.
got it.
This is driving me nuts. It was on. It was on just a second ago.
Oh no, we hear you
And
now.
We can hear you.
yeah. I'm on the phone though.
Okay.
Okay. As an introduction, I've been in Netherland about 20 years, and I bought this property at Second and Snyder about 13 years ago. And I realized when I bought it that it was ripe for redevelopment. And that's kind of the mission of this board. So I'm actively in favor of redeveloping this property. And I don't see there's a conflict of interest in that at all. So that's one of my motivations for being on the board. The second of which is I'd like to have us be more judicious in how we handle our matching grants, in that we seem to get the cart before the horse, and we should make sure that they're vetted. And then thirdly, if the DDA can have any event fundings, like a Saturday fair with music or whatever, I think that would be a great idea. And that's what I'm interested in being on the board for.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. Do we want to go, let's go around in a circle and see if each board member has one question that they would want to ask both Dr. Vallon and David. And let's start with Steve Carreau.
Great, thank you. Well, I had a question, but there was another question that I wanted to follow up with David just on his introduction, and I'm not sure if that's possible, because it's not that, it was just something that he said, so I wouldn't have the same question for Catherine. But in any case, I was just wanting to understand a little better what you meant, David, by the needing to vet the matching grants better. I was wondering if you had any examples of things, that we've done with matching grants that you felt weren't vetted.
I think some of the redevelopment on First Street that was proposed, I don't know if you guys agreed to fund that, so I may be off base there.
I'm not sure. Do you know what project that was?
Burying phone lines and putting in sidewalks.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we did. The board did agree to the matching grants, and it was under the umbrella of knowing that the project itself was going to be vetted before. So we were in favor of the overall idea of it, but not the specifics. And Chris Pelletier at the time had said that the specifics really weren't at all set in stone. So just to answer that, but I was just curious about that, to know what we had done. And I guess that people had answered a few of my questions just with your introductions. So I don't really have any other questions than that.
Okay, great. Let's see, Rhea, do you have any questions for both of the candidates?
So my question for both of you, have you read the NDDA master plan and what do you think of it?
I approve of it. And yes, I have read it, and I approve of it. I like the idea of developing a downtown core for Nederland.
I also have read it, and I have a general favorable kind of don't feel like I know everything that I would need to know to just blanket say, oh, well, gosh, nothing could be made any better or nothing could be changed or made any different. But overall, again, I feel like I'm in favor of what I read.
And as a follow-up, are there any particular projects or sort of goals that you think you would in particular like to be working on that might be following the master plan?
Is that for me?
Both of you, either one, whoever wants to answer. You know, 'cause I guess here, let me just back up. When I joined the DDA, I didn't realize this, but it's more than just being on the board and attending a meeting once a month. I mean, we all are tasked with being on subcommittees and trying to work on projects to benefit the downtown area. And I guess my question is, how do you see yourself fitting in into a project? Is there a particular project you think you might like to work on, or have you thought about that even?
I thought about this having. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Back when we were very first starting the DDA, there was a lot of frustration because it kind of seemed like some of the people who were there seemed like they were there for nothing other than to, poo-poo or put brakes on any idea that anybody came up with. But I also feel like just coming in and thinking that you know enough to start saying like, oh, well, here, let me call some shots. This is how it should be. Having not been now on the DDA for a number of years, I feel like there are things that stepping in and reading a plan recently doesn't fill in all the gaps that I would need filled in to know, I want to try and figure out how can I best be of use? What projects am I either the most qualified or the most excited to help with? But I haven't come in with an agenda to say, well, here's the one I want to work on, or here's the one I want to change, or anything like that. I feel like first, you get on the board and then you figure out where can I be of the most use. If I come in with an agenda already in mind, then I feel like I could actually try and insert myself someplace where they don't need more help, or maybe where I'm not the best person to help. And so finding out where do we need more help and can I be the person that would be helpful is, kind of where I'm starting.
Thank you.
This may not be in the plan that you're referring to, and I probably should have studied it more. But I think that having some events on the weekend here would be a blast, and I'd love to be a part of planning that.
All right, thank you both. And thank you both for applying.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Rhea, for the great questions. How about Andrew?
Rhea kind of asked the question that I was going to ask, which is, operationally, how do you see yourself plugging in? Are there certain committees or certain, things that are that drive you and that you would kind of want to pick up and run with? And I heard you, Catherine, say, you're not really sure because you need to see where the gaps are, and that's great. So, and also thank you both for applying. But the just trying to get a sense of, if there are certain committees, as Ray said, there's, with everything we do, trying to, whether it's talking to, every subcommittee has various tasks and so on and so forth. So that was, I think, and you both answered it. So I don't want to make you say the same thing again, but that was going to be my question, and I think I got the general gist from each of you. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And Ron, do you have a question?
I have no questions.
All right. How about Danielle?
I want to thank you both, Catherine and David, for applying, and I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Great. And Steve Roundtree.
Yeah, thank you to both of you for applying. And maybe just a question on how you feel the DDA will fit into your schedule.
I'll start out on that one. You know, basically, like I said, I have now reached a time in life where I still have energy, but, you know, no longer a child to raise. And so I have more time than I have had for the last 20-ish years and everything. I can't promise that, you know, I can just always drop everything and go, because I do run my business, and obviously I have office hours and stuff like that. But one beautiful thing about being self-employed is you do have some flexibility when you need it. And so I think that when a project is coming to where it needs more attention, at least temporarily, I can be available to give more time. And then, you know, if it's a case that we aren't needing all hands on deck this week, then that's nice too. So as far as fitting it into my schedule has more flexibility than it's had for decades.
I'm retired and have all the time in the world.
Okay, great. Thank you. That leaves, is Jonathan on? I don't think that we've heard from Jonathan this
No,
evening.
I don't believe he's on.
Okay. So that answers all of the questions that the board had. Miranda, can you guide me here? In the past several, we have done this by an email vote. Is that what we're doing this evening?
You can, but I will tell you that it is preferred that you do so publicly. However, if the desire of the board is to do a email vote, that's fine. Those are public records still. So that's why it just, at that point, it seems best to do a live vote. But again, it's kind of comfort level here.
Right. I'm just wondering if we all turn our cameras on, or try to turn our cameras on, if we're going to be able to wave a hand, or how we would do it, because we are having technical issues this evening. So I would be fine with an email vote if everyone else is. If there's anyone that's not okay with that, I guess speak up now and we can try to figure out how to do it.
I think we've set precedent to have email votes, and I think we should stay with that precedent.
A reminder, if we do the email vote, you have to email both Miranda and I so that we
Yeah.
can verify.
Great. Let's go ahead and do that. And if everybody could just send an email to Miranda and Kate now, they can work on that while we move on to the next item here in just a minute.
Is a text okay?
Yeah. A text is fine too, either text or email if you have our phone numbers. I can drop mine in the chat. I'm assuming most of you have Kate's. Oh, sorry, I was messaging just Garrett. Hold on. There you go.
And Miranda, just to clarify real quickly, because what we do is we give our recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and then the Board of Trustees actually makes the appointment to the board. So what we're asking is which candidate we want to vote for to forward to the Board of Trustees.
Correct, yep.
And sorry, this is Steve Carell. If I could interject here, I think that, it's very clear in the Colorado statute that the majority of the board needs to be property owners within the district. And I don't know if, I guess David said that he owns property on Second Street and Snyder, so that's in the district. And I don't know if Catherine owns property there. And the only reason I bring that up is I also don't know if, the current status of our current board of who owns property. But that, we could still go forward with the vote, of course, but that might determine something if we have to have a property owner and if Catherine isn't a property owner. I just wanted to bring that point up so we can make our recommendation to the BOT, but we would need to, I think, stay within the Colorado statute. And so people on the board should probably tell, it could be offline, but could let Catherine and Barbara know if we're property owners or not, just because we wouldn't want to make a recommendation to the board and again, I don't know if Catherine also owns property, in which case it's a moot point. But I did just want to bring that up before we were voting.
So just quickly, I think obviously we know that Steve, you are a property owner, Rhea is a property owner,
Yeah.
Ron is a property owner, and Steve from Eldora represents Eldora, who are also property owners, which means 4 out of the 7 are property owners right now. And I am unclear if Jonathan Baumhover counts in the numbers. I don't believe that he does because he is a liaison to the BOT. And if he is not reappointed to the BOT, someone else would be the liaison. So that's my understanding, is that we have 4 property owners on the board right now.
Okay,
mean,
yeah, and I without knowing better, I agree with you about Jonathan, that he wouldn't count as a board member because he's a liaison. But does that mean we'd be becoming 8 plus Jonathan with the new appointee? And so if there are only 4 and then
I own
not a
property. I'm not necessarily sure if it's in the central business district, but certainly within town limits.
You own property
DDA district.
in the DDA district, Andrew?
I mean, West First Street. I don't know. If
West
that's
First Street,
All the voters have to be, regardless of whether property owners or leasees, have to be within the boundaries of the DDA.
correct. Is Ron, do you know if Andrew's property is within the boundaries?
Andrew DeWart's property is not within the boundaries.
okay.
So that would have the board be 4 and 4 without Jonathan.
Yeah, and as I said, this is late information, I guess, to the whole process, but so I think we should still proceed with the vote, but I think that should be determined, before we would make the recommendation to the BOT. But also, Catherine, if you can hear and on the call, are you a property owner within the DDA boundary?
No, I am not for my home, just have my business in there, but obviously
Yeah.
I don't own the shopping center.
Right,
Be nice,
right.
but no, I think I'd be a better landlord than Tebow.
So yeah, anyway, that, so as I see it, I think that might be, it might be like 4 and 4 if Catherine as a non-property owner was, which wouldn't be a majority, but it's something that we can clarify afterward. But I just wanted to bring that up while we were talking about the appointees on the meeting. I just read that statute yesterday when I was reading some of this stuff.
Thanks, Steve. That is an item that after our discussion about the IGA that we've proposed, I was going to include that in my discussion with Paul Benedetti to get his thoughts on that and what, is it just a simple majority, like to get those kind of parameters for us so we better understand.
Great. Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it.
Okay. So everybody was going to send in their vote, and then in a few minutes, Miranda and Kate can go through that and give us the information back. Thank you, Dr. Valen and David, for showing up, and you're certainly welcome to listen to the rest of the meeting. We hope you will, and we're going to move into the next action item, which is the Netherland Green Business Program with Garrett.
Good evening, NDDA. This is Garrett McDaniel. I'm the town sustainability coordinator. I'm joined here with Matt Hannon, Boulder County, PACE. This agenda item was an informational item last month, and so we're back again seeking your approval to move forward with the Green Business Program. I know Kate wanted me to be thorough on sort of your involvement in the program. So really right now I'm working on the application, and that's what businesses would use to apply for the application or to apply to be in the Green Business Program. And so I just would want your guys' feedback, because I mean, you know the Ned businesses better than I do, and so I certainly don't want this to be Garrett's Green Business. I want this to be the NDDA's Green Business Program, as well as the Sustainability Advisory Board. So working on the application, that's certainly the biggest lift.
I can't hear anything, and I'm
Oh,
having
he's
bandwidth.
got
I'm
something
having
going on.
okay. It's also telling me that I have low bandwidth, and I'm kind of flashing in and out. So I apologize.
I haven't seen anything with you, but there's an error message. Yeah, that due to low bandwidth, the local computer conditions.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll get him to come back in a second. Let me see what there's a chat.
Or if Matt Hannon is maybe available, if anyone has any questions. I don't have any questions because I've read through it.
I have a quick question. I might have missed this. But are you asking for any money from us, from the DDA, or just to support the program?
I'm sorry, this is Garrett. I'm back again. I don't know what happened. I just got kicked out. Ray, are we asking for money? No, we're not asking for any money for the Green Business Program.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to double check.
No, just your time, really. That's really, and I know you've got a lot of other projects, as you were alluding to in those interviews. And so, you know, we just want to get this off the ground, and if we can get it off the ground, it's pretty low effort to keep it running. As I talked about the application, you know, we can make minor tweaks in say year 2, but really it's just getting the application off the ground. You know, the DDA sending out email announcements, and then there's the recognition event after the application closes, and where we just, I don't know, do pizza in the park or something like that, where we just recognize the businesses that are doing awesome sustainability things. And so it's really, it could be as complicated or as simple as we make it. And certainly the sustainability coordinator, myself, would be doing the bulk of the work. I would just want you to be a consultant and an advisor, so that I am, you know, I'm not straying off the path, that this is really a Nederland, you know, centered green business program. It's not, because all of these communities down in like the Boulder area, Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, they have their own green business programs. We need to make ours tailored to Ned businesses, and that's really the perspective that I'm sort of that I want to lean on you to provide. So what I was thinking is I can work on if you approve this, it would go to the BOT for approval. The timeline is, you know, we would start the green business program in January. So I would be working on the application, and I would perhaps just want to touch base with you all to say, hey, how does this application look to you guys? Is it way too difficult? Is it too easy? What else would you like to see? I know we talked a little bit about dark skies in our last meeting. So, you know, it's just incorporating those Nederland specific questions to the application that I would just want to review with you all.
Great, thank you, Garrett. Does anyone else have questions for Garrett or Matt Hannon?
This is Steve Carreau. I don't have any questions, but I thought it was pretty well presented with the aim. But I just want to say I really like the idea and I support it, personally. I think it's a really cool thing to get a little bit more energy in the community to recognize other businesses, that are doing a good job in something that's really important to the town. So I just wanted to say thanks for organizing it, and I support it.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And I'll just kind of piggyback on what Garrett was saying. And I'm Matt Hannon, by the way. I think I met most of you last month on the call, but I work for a Boulder County program called Partners for Clean Environment, or PACE, and I help administer a lot of the green business programs, well, all the green business programs in Boulder County. But this would be a really easy lift, I think, for this crew. This would be, 5 to 10 minutes every other month for, just the application period. Kind of ask where maybe Garrett and I would come to the meeting and say, hey, how does this program look? Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any ideas? Because this is a group of people on this call that's pretty well connected to the community, the business community. Pretty smart, I think, pretty creative, and so we're always looking for kind of new ideas for the green business program. So we'll kind of say, hey, this is what we've got. How's it look? And so getting any feedback really, every now and then is really all we'd be asking, I think. In addition to whatever Garrett might have. So it's a pretty easy lift for any boards that we've been working with. So it's really just kind of bouncing some ideas off of you.
So again, the only time commitment would be just during meetings, us kind of reviewing your applications or what you have going on and providing our comments. You don't need us to form a subcommittee to help do anything, right? It's just during the meetings?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think a subcommittee is needed. Yeah, I think I could pretty much handle it, and Matt's obviously pretty well in tune with Nederland, and so between him and I think we can get something put together and just have you guys approve it and maybe provide some comments on a shared document or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned. We have a lot of projects we seem to be working on, and I'm just concerned about time, but it sounds like it's not much time commitment on our part, and I'm totally comfortable with what you guys outlined. So thanks.
Yeah, I think the time commitment, it's generally Garrett and I know you mentioned reviewing the applications, but that's something that I actually do, and Garrett would help out with as well. And we do site visits and help with upgrades, that kind of thing. So from your perspective, it's very very easy, I think. So most of the work has fallen on Garrett, and will continue to, with me being really that support and offering any assistance we can from the county side of things.
This is Danielle. I have a question. So you guys are doing some wonderful work in helping our community and offering a lot of the input on it. Once it is up and running, say you guys get involved with other things, is there a way to have it set in place that we can easily maintain it later on?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, Garrett, if you want me to take that one, but
yeah, please, Matt.
Yeah, so in terms of the application process, it's really all saved on one main platform called GreenBiz Tracker, and you can go to greenbiztracker.org and kind of check it out as well. But all applications from all businesses are saved. So all they have to do as a business is go and revisit that application. And I also provided Garrett with a general timeline and tasks and who's responsible for what kind of document that we've been using with cities, municipalities, towns across the county, and in terms of what happens throughout the year. So if Garrett were to leave or I were to leave, there's a lot of, it's very clear what the next steps would be if for the next year's program or for a new coordinator to come on. So it's really easy pull. A lot of it's already kind of written in to different documents and saved online and everything else. So once you do all the initial work, which is what Garrett's doing right now and has been doing the last couple months and will be doing the next couple months, it's a really easy process from there. And that I think will be especially easy because we work a lot with like Longmont, as you mentioned, in Louisville, where you've got dozens and dozens of businesses that join every year. So it can get a little a little tricky keeping everything in order. But I imagine Ned and kind of Superior in the same boat in terms of you're really looking at like 5 to 10 businesses participating that first year, maybe get a few more the second year, a couple more the next year. So you're not really dealing with like a large quantity. You're really celebrating those businesses that are really engaged and active and want to participate. So after that initial pull, it's really not too much work.
Great, thank you.
And I will say, Danielle, the BOT approved last night that the sustainability coordinator would have more hours starting in March. I work currently 13 hours a week for the town of Nederland, and those hours are going up. So there will be more bandwidth for the sustainability coordinator next year, which is good
Awesome.
news to support programs like this.
That's wonderful.
I'm in support, and thank you both and for everything you've done so far. I know, Matt, you've helped out businesses a lot over the last couple of years, at least since I've been part of the DDA, and would love to see this happen given the small time commitment and accolades that businesses could get. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew.
Great, thanks. Ron, do you have any questions or comments?
I just want to thank Matt for all the help he's given the restaurants that I'm involved with. And I look forward to seeing this program continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Great, thanks. And I think that leaves Steve Roundtree if you have any questions or comments.
No questions. I think it's a positive thing. Totally support it.
Great, thank you. So what is our next step? Let's, Miranda, do we entertain a motion? Because it's an action item.
Yes, please, for the records.
Let's see.
Is there any discussion before we would make a motion,
Or any public comment?
Public comment, yeah. Hearing none. Someone like to make a motion on the Green Business Program?
I make a motion that the DDA support the Netherland Green Business Program as stated in the AIM.
Second?
And Kate, would you call the roll?
It helps if I unmute. Steve Carreau,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Dwart,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Cross,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
All right, thank you all.
Great, motion passes.
Thanks all.
Thank you. And let's move on to the resolution for the special event grant program. And these are just tying up a couple of loose ends that we didn't.
Do we want to circle back to our vote since we still have both of the applicants on?
I'd like to look, I'm looking at statute right now. If I could have a little, if these applicants don't mind hanging on for this, I'd like to finish this statute review really quick.
No problem. I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
This is Steve Crow, and Miranda, I could let you know the Colorado statute that mentions it very specifically.
Yeah, I actually have it open, so I just want to verify these pieces and then I can get back. But I don't want to hold everyone up. Well,
okay, but you have the exact section of the.
Yeah, are you talking about 31, 25, 805, and 806?
Yeah, and I saw it in 816, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then Kate, would you like to do the resolution for the special event funding?
Yes. So the next two items. Okay, good. I am not muted. Okay. The next two items we have relate. Oh no, for some reason now my computer is going to start acting up. Hold on. Okay. The next two items relate to year end. and helping us clean up things and make sure we spend all the money we need to spend, and pay everybody we have said we would like to pay. So the first is a resolution for your 2021 special event grant. There was a small remainder from 2020 that we have to put towards the grant that you approved for Wild Bear, but we need to approve the remainder, the pot of money, the $10,000 that you fully approved for 2021, so that we can pay the remainder of the grant request. And if there's anybody else that comes to us towards year end, at least the money will be available. So that's why you're seeing this resolution. I will say that Rita and I went through the numbers again after the packet was published, and I do need to make one edit because I included the interest, the $50 interest in one of the amounts, and I need to remove that. And so that edit will be made for when this would go to the BOT if approved. Does anybody have any questions?
But this is Steve Carell. Yeah, I just was wondering, what was the grant that we approved for Wild Bear? I don't have that in my memory.
Was it I'm Teens Inc. I'm sorry, it's not Wild
Oh,
Bear. Wild Bear wanted to ask us for a grant, and they may still be coming, and so I think that that's subconsciously why they came out of my mouth, but it was Teens Inc. For the Net event, so I apologize.
oh, good. I'm glad my memory isn't quite as bad as it really is.
You know, when I can roll with a lot during meetings like this, but there's just been a few things that I'm trying to juggle at once, and now I'm just kind of a little loopy right now. So I appreciate you calling that out.
Sure, no problem. No, I was just trying to remember what it was.
No, they had indicated that they want to, and I do hope that they will come to us for some of their things by year end. So that's why I wanted to make sure that if that was something that the board wanted to entertain, that the funding would be available, everything would be where it needed to be.
Great, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. I don't have any questions. Let's just go around real quick. Rhea, do you have any questions or comments?
So this, just remind me, this grant program, the DDA set aside $10,000 per year to dole out to local businesses to help run events. Is that correct? And then, did we agree that it's gonna be like a certain amount per business?
Yes.
When-
And I
so-
actually, Rhea, I think it was actually the board meeting that you were trying to attend with us and you couldn't. We did go
Okay.
over this, and we have a grant application that we
Okay.
drafted, and
Okay.
we did put a cap on there.
Okay, and then, so, and I'm sorry if I didn't read the packet carefully enough. So
No, it's
this is the resolution is for the $2,000 that we promised teens, and then additional money to be determined if somebody else comes to us before the end of the year? Or does this
Exactly.
carry over? And would this money also carry over to next year or the next couple
Yes.
years? Or are we gonna have to do another, okay, we don't have to do another resolution next year, just another resolution when this money runs out? Is that correct?
Exactly. So best practice is that when you budget money for a year, you go and you ask for it. Well, we were still spending through it, so that's why we're going now to get the remainder of what we need. And so then, yes, next year we'll, draw down on this money. We may not get to the 10,000 that we have allocated for 2021, but at least it's available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I hope that was helpful. It's just because we do have some trailing, with 2020 and y'all not spending the way that things normally happen. There is, there's been a lot of that I'm trying to track and make sure that we are spending down everything that you've approved and getting more money if we need it like this. So that's why the next two things this and the item below it are just me trying to make sure that the money that you've gotten approved this year is available to be spent.
Thank you. Makes sense.
Great, thanks, Rhea. Andrew, do you have any questions?
No, pretty clear.
Thank
Just,
you.
some clerical stuff. Yeah, move forward.
Great. And Ron, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Danielle.
No questions.
Great. And Steve Roundtree.
No questions.
Great. Do we have any public comment or discussion on this item? All right, not hearing or seeing any. Let's have a motion to approve.
I make a motion that the DDA approve resolution 2021-23 for the special event grant program.
I second.
And Kate, will you call the roll?
Yes. Steve Carot,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duarte,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Daniel Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
Thank you all.
And Miranda, do you want to hop in with the information or should we move into the final action item?
It's definitely your choice. Do you want to jump into the appointment?
Yeah, let's do that first.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this up so everyone can see. So what you have in 3125-806 says each appointed member of the board, except any member from the governing body, shall reside, be a business leasee, or own real property in the downtown development district within the municipality in which the authority is located. It then goes on to talk about that an employee of an entity would also be eligible, and therefore both candidates are eligible, and I do not see anywhere that dictates a percentage of owner versus leasee, that those can be kind of universally represented without meaning kind of one. You don't have to have a set amount of one versus the other.
Did you look in that one that I mentioned?
So
Because
16
I'm sure I
is
saw
in
it.
regards to the budget.
Oh, okay. I
Page
might have had that
16
wrong.
is in regards to funding, budget and funding.
Okay, I
And
might have the
there's
wrong.
nothing in our bylaws about that? I thought it was
There's
in the
nothing
bylaws.
in your bylaws
No, there's
either
nothing in the
about,
bylaws.
no.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Miranda, I just read it yesterday, so I may have given you the wrong number there, but it says that a majority of the members must be landowners, property owners.
Okay, let me do some more research then.
Do you have the statute, Steve? I'm trying to find it and
Well,
looking.
I'm gonna go grab my book. Yeah, I would keep going, Barb, but I gotta go grab my books and not Google searches.
3125-806 does not seem to have it.
Great, Kate, do you want to go forward with the last action item while we figure that part out?
Yes. So this next resolution that you're seeing is for the Safer Main Streets grant matching funding that you have previously approved as a board. Now that the grant was awarded, they're starting to get bills, and town would like us to approve money so that we can chip in for the project. So what you're seeing is the resolution to approve the $70,000 that you had previously approved. Now this will move it aside so that we can start contributing to the grant funds. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. Is the maximum amount we will contribute to this 70,000, or is it open-ended as a percent match?
No, it's 70.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Let's just go around the board again. Rhea, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Andrew?
No, I'm just, whereas I'm reading the text here, net cost of loan payable from the water fund of the town of Nederland. Maybe that's just what I'm getting confused why the water fund is in there.
So that's how it's structured. That's where
Okay.
town gives us the money from and we
Okay.
pay it back to. That's just the way that they've decided to do it.
Okay, that's all. That was
It's
the
the
only
cleanest
question.
way for them.
Okay, no questions.
Great, thank you. Danielle, do you have any questions?
No questions.
And Steve Roundtree?
I don't have any questions.
All right. And Steve Carew
No questions, thanks.
and Rhea?
No questions.
Great. Hearing no further questions, do we have any public comment or discussion on this? Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I make a motion to approve the action item to move forward, paying the town $70,000 for the Safer Main Streets grant funding as outlined in the AIM.
Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Great, thank you. And Kate, will you call the roll?
Steve Carew,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes?
Andrew Duarte,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Motion passes. And
So Steve, yep. So Steve actually it was in 31-25-801 that states Steve is after the majority of members appointed shall reside or own property in the downtown development district, which means if you are a board of 9, at least 5 of your members need to fall into those 2 categories. Again, though, so where it gets tricky is you've got then Jonathan. Now Jonathan actually does reside within district, so he would fall into that component.
Isn't Danielle as well?
Yes, I believe Danielle, you do. Yes.
Yeah, I now live and have my business in town.
So that would be a majority of the board lives or owns property in town limits. So either
I'm
candidate.
sorry,
would-
is it town limits or the DDA district?
It's the
Sorry,
DDA district.
Because that's a
Within
big
the DDA
difference.
district. Has to, not the town limits, it's the DDA. You have to have your business or own property within the DDA limits.
You shall, reside or own property. The majority need to reside or own property, but then to be an eligible member, it is to be, let's see, at least own property or reside.
Because we were just saying how Andrew lives in town, but he lives outside of the DDA limit, so he doesn't count.
And I didn't take the notes. Can we recap that? So Ron's in the district. Jonathan actually is in the district.
Jonathan is in the district as a,
Danielle.
yep. Ron, Steve Roundtree is in the district. Steve Carew is in the district. So basically,
Yeah, you've got your majority.
it doesn't have any of the majority because I live outside the district and don't own property in town.
Right. Okay.
So either candidate is eligible.
Yeah, correct. I don't know, Kate, though, then do you want to announce the recommendation?
Sure, I can announce it. The recommendation will be David Seitz.
So David, this will go before the Board of Trustees next week. on the 16th, and we'd love if you could join that meeting to share with the Board of Trustees why you're interested in the DDA, and that's when the final appointment will occur.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you both, Catherine and David.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
both.
Thanks for both.
All right, so let's see, we've got through all the action items. Let's move on to the discussion item. The first one will be the zero waste grant, and that will be Garrett.
Yep, I'm back. So yeah, Boulder County is offering or eliciting grant applications for reuse, recycling, and composting programs. This went to the Board of Trustees, and they approved the application to provide a rebate for town restaurants for the purchase of recyclable to-go-ware. I know, Kate, we spoke earlier, maybe late last week, and I think we wanted to discuss with the group all these different options, and I've sort of vetted all of those, and since it's already been presented to the BOT as what I just described, I think we just need to make sure that hear out the NDDA and get their support on this. Really, this is me writing the grant on the behalf of the NDDA, so I certainly want and need your perspectives. Included in the grant will be education. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, whether it's signage in the businesses or maybe little postcards that sort of attached to the to-go-ware that sort of educates consumers on the issues of recycling and why we should be using recyclable to-go-ware or maybe reusable to-go-ware. So there's certainly an educational component to this that I haven't put much thought towards, but we are asking for money to like print materials and stuff like that too. I think that's about it on that. So I would like to hear from you all since this is a discussion item. The grant is due on Friday, so I don't have much time to get this put together. So any sort of changes of scope would be pretty hard in order for me to get that submitted by noon on Friday.
I support the grant to get lessen the amount of polystyrene / single-use bags, given how much waste has been generated. I know a lot of that is COVID circumstances, but also just kind of knowing and acknowledging that compostable, we don't really have a great infrastructure for downstream for compostable packaging, even though it sounds great. But yeah, anything educational and being able to direct businesses to recyclable alternatives to the polystyrene and single-use stuff is a no-brainer to me. So.
Thanks, Andrew. And we originally were thinking compostable to-go-ware, but in talking with the county, their recommendation is recyclable just because Nederland doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure to support compostable to-go-ware. And there's definitely been some studies that have come out fairly recently that says compostable to-go-ware, it takes a long time for that to break down, and it certainly is not recommended for backyard composting. So they're recommending recyclable to-go-ware.
Great, thanks. I had one question because it says on the information here that it would be a match by the DDA. And so if there's a match by the DDA, we don't have that in our budget that I know of. So my question is, where would that come from? We don't have that planned for next year on our side.
Yep. Thanks, Barb, for bringing that up. Totally forgot about that. Very important. It's not required. but it recommended. So if the NDDA doesn't have the funds, then I don't think that's a showstopper. I think we still go on and ask for, it's going to be around $5,000 to provide, 20 or so businesses with recyclable to-go-ware. And so if the funds aren't there and there's not the discretionary funds, then I say we just go in with it. It's not a lot of money for the county. Like they're offering up to 15,000, and if we're just asking for 5,000, I don't see why. I don't see the match being a game breaker.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's just go around again and see if there are further questions. Ron Mitchell?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Danielle?
I have no questions, but I do want to say that a couple of the restaurants were hit hard with COVID and were bummed out about having the funds for recycling and being more economic. So this is very appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Steve Roundtree?
No questions. I think it's any step in this direction is a positive. So.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Steve Carreau.
I also don't have any questions, but I support it, and I think it's a great idea. And I was actually kind of impressed that the recommendation was more for recyclables than compostables, given the nature of Nederland, without any real composting facilities easily accessible. So I thought that was a smart move, even though it would be great to go with compostables, maybe down the road when we have more infrastructure. But yeah, thanks for bringing it. I think it's a good thing.
Great, thank you. And that leaves Rhea.
I first of all, I am glad to see this, and I'm glad to see it go in the recyclable direction, because I'm always struggling to know what to do with those compostable things. Anyway, and I have a question, not for the applicant, but really for the board. And every project that we approve, I believe, has to fit in with our master plan somewhere. And so I was sort of looking at this as, okay, so where in the master plan are we supporting sustainability? And so I was going through the master plan just now, and there is a section called Downtown Business Services in our master plan. So it basically says, the DDA can use funding to implement programs that focus on business services. The ultimate goal of such programs is to work with prospective business owners who are developing new businesses and improving existing businesses. And then there's a list of examples, that may include several things like small business incubators, shop local campaigns, hosting professional development events, a business newsletter. It doesn't include anything about helping fund recycling ware, but I don't necessarily think it precludes it. So I just kind of bring this up as more of like a discussion item to make sure that we all feel it's appropriate to spend our constituents' money on this. And it probably is, if that's what the businesses want, because it's, to be honest, it's their property tax money that's going to be funding this. So anyway, any thoughts from anybody else?
Yeah, this is Steve Carreau. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a good discussion to have. And for, going back a couple of years, I think we looked into this whole business services in the master plan and kind of, hashed that out. And I think it's purposefully pretty vague, as, just like our plan of development is purposely vague. And so I do feel like it's, the sort of the board, as it morphs and everything, can interpret these in different ways. And I would say that, it's also really nice that it's supporting one of the town of Netherlands objectives as well of being more sustainable. So I think it pretty easily could fit in with that business services group. The one problem that I have with it, which isn't a major problem, but it's, not every business needs to go where, recyclable to go where. And so in that sense, this program is perhaps helping, just one subsection of the businesses within the DDA. And, I think that happens a lot with grants, and certainly through COVID, there's a lot of regulations on grant money that preclude certain sectors of the economy. So I don't think it's a major stumbling block, but it did have me thinking a bit about, just that this is really all about people who use to-go-ware and businesses that use to-go-ware, and not every, maybe half or fewer really fit into that category. Just my thoughts on it.
Great point, both of you, Ray and Steve. Thank you for bringing that up.
So do we want to discuss, obviously there are 11 or 12 restaurants in town.
It sounds like we want to pass it, but not spend any money on it.
Well, that is the question is, do we want to move it forward without having a DDA match, which is a possibility? Is that what we want to do with this item and direct Garrett to move it forward? Or do
I'm in favor of moving it forward.
Yeah.
It's unclear to me how much having a match is really going to affect our eligibility to receive the grant. Garrett made it seem like, Boulder County has a lot of money. They don't necessarily need a matching section of it.
Yeah, I think me stressing my role within the town of Nederland, I think they want to make sure there's skin in the game for Nederland. And I think with me being sort of that primary focus, all things sustainability, I think we already have the skin in the game, and I don't think that they're going to feel like they're giving funds to Nederland and they're not going to be utilized, because there is one person focused on these things, and so I don't think the matching is required for this. I really don't.
Then I say let's move forward without the matching funds. If we don't need to spend taxpayers' money, then we can use it on something else. Then let's do that.
Okay, I think everyone has had a chance to ask questions or speak. Let's open it up if there are any public comments or discussion further. Okay. Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion if someone wants to put one forward.
Miranda, jump in because I want to make sure that I'm right about this. Since this is a discussion item and we need this to move to action, I believe is what I'm hearing. How does that work? Do we need to have a motion to move to action? And
Yes.
we'll do the motion. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I'm starting to get it.
Yes.
So first, we would entertain a motion from someone to move this to an action item. If someone wants to make that motion.
I motion that the NDDA Boulder County Zero Waste Grant be moved to an action item.
I second that motion.
Great, thanks. And Kate, would you take a roll?
Steve Carreau?
Yes.
Rhea Ortner?
Yes.
Bart Hart?
Yes.
Andrew Duarte?
Yes.
Ron Mitchell?
Yes.
Danielle Kraus?
Yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. And with it moved to an action item, would someone like to make a motion for approval with the wording of it not being a matching grant? You just look at that.
I make a motion to Garrett to apply for the grant on behalf of Nederland. And let's see, I don't want to butcher this. Let me, let's see, I'm just reading through this grant here one more time. So Garrett, are you going to just go for 5,000?
Yeah, it'll be a rebate. I'm leaning towards a rebate of up to $200 per restaurant or food establishment that qualifies. And
Okay.
perhaps that actually might be a percentage of their actual purchase order. So it'll be a max of $5,000 that we would use.
Okay. What's the easiest way to say this quickly, succinctly? Make a motion to approve Garrett moving forward with the Boulder County Zero Waste Grant, provided the DDA will not be contributing.
If I could just make
Steve, if
a
you got
point.
something better, go for it.
I don't know if it's better, but I just feel like it's unnecessary to say that, provided that the Netherland DDA is not matching any grant. Like that could,
Okay.
I think the crux of it is that we approve Garrett moving forward with this grant application. And it might be better not to say, because that makes it sound like we're only in favor of it because we don't have to pay money. But we are all in favor of it in theory and, in practice.
Yeah. No, I understood. So you want to say it, Steve, then?
Maybe I'll try. I make a motion to approve Garrett moving forward with the Boulder County Zero Waste Grant application.
I second.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Will you take the roll?
Steve Crow,
Yes.
Ray Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Dwart,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Motion passes. Now we have another discussion item, and this is going to be introduced by Danielle Kraus.
So Claudia Schaffler has put together a rough draft map of NED to help promote and locate businesses. I think this is a good supplement to the wayfinding and would help motivate people to be involved and promote businesses. The map is a preliminary that we're looking at. She's open to suggestions. I was thinking maybe we could involve the designs for merge. She is working with a designer who was residing up here and is now down below. She's already invested 350 into it and projects that it would be no more than 500. and she's hoping that we can offer some help for administration, small amounts of time, or any financial support in getting this up and going. The map is attached. So some of my notes were maybe we can align this with what Merge is projecting, with some of the design, with what this designer came up with. And this is Normandy Rainwater, who has worked with town often. And see what you guys think. What do you think?
Great, thanks. If I can just speak for just a second, I was a little surprised to see the map, since Claudia knows that I've been working on one since February in town, and I've been working on it with George Blevins and other people to create something that we could hand out. And it was something that the police department had asked us to do. We originally had hoped we would have it out by fall. That didn't happen, but we are still working on it, and farther than she is on the process. So if she has something she can hand out, you know, quickly, then that's a great idea. But if not, this is something that was already in process through my personal business, not the DDA. And it was kind of a surprise to me to see it in the packet after I had actually shared with several members that I was working on a map. So that's my thoughts on it.
Do you think you'd want
I'm on
to
the call.
collaborate?
I'm on the call if you'd like any comments from me.
Great. Those are my comments. So I would love to, you know, yeah, it's something that was being worked on, and I had shared that with several people. So I guess it's just surprising to me that something that has already had quite a bit of time invested in it, that's not a DDA project, was having the same thing presented, I guess.
Are you waiting for me? This is Claudia.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea that you were working on it to this extent, Barb. I've been anxious to get this done. I've actually been talking about it for some time also. So once I was off of the DDA, and I thought, well, I haven't heard anything, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward with this because there's a great need for it, and I am constantly having to give people directions. So I took it upon myself to go ahead and do this, and I'm actually pretty close to moving forward with it. So if the DDA doesn't support this, you know, that's certainly the board's call, but I'm planning on moving forward because I want something sooner than later.
Okay, well, let's go around the circle and see if anyone has any questions or comments. If we can start with Steve Carell.
Yes, hi. And hi, Claudia. I didn't know you were on the call here, but that's good. I'm glad you are for the wayfinding as well. So my thoughts about it are that, you know, we've been working on the wayfinding and discussing, you know, various ways to have maps. And my thoughts are that a map such as this, you know, or I haven't seen Barb's, or I wasn't aware of that one, but I think, you know, some type of a simple paper map is a decent idea, especially while we're getting wayfinding off the ground and getting that going. You know, my hope is that things would be turned more digital later, but even if they did, I think a simple paper map that's very inexpensive could be a good thing for businesses to have and be able to hand out, because certainly not everybody has, you know, digital options at their fingertip. And so, you know, I think that it's something that could work along with wayfinding even in the future as wayfinding gets more developed. And I think it would be great and very important to have it aligned with the graphics and the information of the wayfinding program. But in the meantime, I think it's a really nice sort of a stopgap measure that, you know, because it might be a year or two before we have anything going to present with wayfinding, you know, in terms of maps and all. So I'm in favor of it, especially with it being so simple and low budget. One of my questions for you, Claudia, I guess, was to clarify, it mentioned, a sort of a $500 cost. And I was wondering if you thought, if that meant like $500 per year because you had mentioned perhaps several runs of the map during the year, as businesses change, I suppose. So I was wondering on that, just a question about that, like, is the $500 budget, what does that entail or encompass?
That's a good question, Steve. Right now, what I'm paying for is the design and the graphics. And what Normandy has agreed to do is if someone wanted to, if there's room on it, place an ad or something, she'd be willing to work with them on that. Part of it includes teaching me how to be able to update it, should there be, which there will be, changes in businesses and things like that. So the expense right now is for the design. And I'm willing, I think this is important enough, and I see it as being a supplement to wayfinding. By no means is there competition for wayfinding by any stretch, but a lot of people like something in their hand. And so as long as there's a need for it, then there would be a need for businesses to print it out. What I would like to do, so that I'm not incurring more expenses, to, once it's all done and paid for, is to share it with businesses and they can print it out. I mean, I'd be happy to if they wanted me to do it and they wanted to pay for it, but they could print out what they need if they think it's useful for them. They would be included on the map regardless, of course. But if they wanted to put them out, then they would have access to be able to print them out at, however they see fit. And then I would just continue to be responsible for updating it or make changes or, whatever. Like, for example, there's going to be 3 artists studios type thing, actually 4 with the Wild Bear at the shopping center. So I was hoping that maybe all 4 of those would want to go together and highlight a little art district kind of a thing. But that would be changed, if they wanted to do that, we could, my goal is to accommodate whatever anybody wants. This is just my personal thing. So no, the money goes into the design. I was hoping that maybe Kate could help me and make sure that I'm not missing any brick and mortar businesses, because I think she's got a list of that. So I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for whatever help anybody feels like it is appropriate, because I'm really anxious to get this out there.
And I think as a small low budget supplement stopgap until wayfinding's up is a good idea. I think I noticed Kathmandu's not listed on there, and I know there seems to be some new food trucks moving in places. So I would just maybe add those things if you can update it easily.
Oh, lots needs to be added, and everything that's on there now is just a placeholder.
Okay.
It's not by any stretch to include all the businesses. We just kind of threw in what we knew so that we'd have some idea how it would be grouped and what it would look like. But yeah, there's plenty that's missing, that's for sure.
Yeah, so Claudia, I think thanks for clarifying the $500 idea, and so I understand that's more toward the development of it and the design work with Normandy and some of your work, and then the printing. Your plan for that would be provided digitally to any businesses in town, and they can print it off as they see fit. It's also photocopies, which I assume this could be like a high quality laser printout. Double-sided or whatever, is super cheap now. It might be like 5 cents for a double-sided full color thing. So I think that even if down the road, if it made more sense to print a couple thousand of them and give them out to businesses, that it wouldn't be a huge expense. As the DDA, I'm not sure how it comes into our budget. And I understand it's very small money, but I just don't know the logistics of that. But I do support it, and I think it's a really good thing, that can probably be redesigned or developed along with our wayfinding as we get that going more. because I think it would be important when wayfinding is up and running that if we do still have any printed maps, that they really mirror the whole look and feel and information of the wayfinding programming. So yeah, I like the idea. That's, I guess, my questions and comments.
Great, thanks, Steve. Rhea, do you have any questions or comments?
Hi there. Thanks for working on this, Claudia. What's going in the gray squares around the edges of this? What are those for?
I think she left that for if I wanted to try to do ads to help supplement the cost of getting this up and running.
Right. I mean, just in terms of, like you mentioned, it's not complete. I mean, Crosscut Pizza's not on there. I would add a section on health, the clinic, if people need medical attention. I mean, I know it's not an emergency room or urgent care, but the clinic and even the 2 veterinarians. Lots of people come up here with pets and pets get into trouble. I mean, I think that would be a good idea too.
That's a good idea.
You know, I feel just a little conflicted because I feel like we have this design firm, Merge, who's going to put together a comprehensive thing, but I get what you're saying. Like, I want something now because it sure does seem like this wayfinding thing is taking a long time to get done. So I guess I don't have a big problem with it, but I do, you know, it's not much money, but it is almost seems like it's a little bit maybe redundant. I don't know, but maybe it's also a good thing to get out there now. So anyways, those are my comments. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Rhea. And Andrew.
Yeah, I think as Steve said, and I agree, wayfinding is going to be comprehensive, but it could be 2 years before that's up and running. So for the, relatively small investment to be able to get information out, if it was more money, I'd be hesitant to do it, but for the low budget, just to get something immediate out, and even that could be on the website as well. But as Steve said, laser 2-sided copies are pretty inexpensive. I see it as a stopgap measure, and I'm not opposed to it. That's all I got.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And Ron. Still on there?
Sorry, had trouble getting there. No comment.
Great, thank you. Danielle, do you have any further comment?
Since everybody's in agreement that this could be a helpful thing, maybe we could share with Normandy some of the ideas for Merge, some of the color layouts, and start introducing to our town the visuals for that. I know that we're still in the process of fine-tuning that, but it could be a start. And since this would be published, printed several times, we can start making edits and see how people respond to it. Maybe even use it as a way to connect with people to get feedback on designs. And the idea for adding more to it and having it be more clear, Claudia, maybe we can work with Normandy and the ads and having it be 2-sided and folded, and the ads could be on one side, and when they open it, the whole map is in there. And that could include getting financial support and getting notices about events out with it too. So those are my ideas.
That's fine to me.
Also with Barb, I don't know if you'd be interested, the 2 of you sharing information, since Barb, you have already done some good work on this, or however that might fit in together.
I probably have more information than the DDA on all of the businesses in town because I have more updated information on who's actually in the buildings. So I would be interested in collaborating in some way, but I have already contracted with George Blevins as an artist to create a map. So it's kind of a conflict unless some of his illustrations could somehow be included. It doesn't look large enough to me that it's going to be something that can really highlight the businesses and what is where if you're talking about something that you're going to hand to somebody that's a sheet of paper. So I would be willing to talk more about it. I'm just really frustrated. I've been working on this since February, and if this will fill the hole until something else can be done, then I guess that's a good thing.
So Barb, I don't want to add to the frustration, but I did want to share that the visitor center already has a map. We've had a map for years. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone knew this. Now, I'm not saying this is the perfect map or by any means the right way to go, but it is updated annually based on a comparison to our business list. And this is the most current one we have.
So actually, that would be great. That would be great to hand out to people. And I did not know the visitor center had one of those. I have talked to Sharon about the other type of map that I'm working on with George. So
okay.
So yeah, we are in some ways reinventing the wheel, I suppose.
So Jesse, I'm sorry, pulls this one together, but I'm going to send it to the DDA, and then Claudia, I'll copy you in. Again, I'm not saying this is the definite way to go, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knew we do have it.
Great, thank you. And we have not heard from Steve Roundtree yet.
I don't have any comments on this.
Okay, thank you. Since it's a discussion item, it would not, unless someone wanted to move it to an action item tonight. Just Claudia, do you have anything else to add or anything else that we should consider? The town map actually I did not know existed in a current state. I've only seen one that was several years old, so.
No, I totally plan on moving forward. I'm happy to incorporate what anybody thinks we should incorporate, and then we'll just see what works. That's my objective, is to get something out there and see what works.
Okay, and you're not thinking that the town map works?
Well, I mean, if most people don't even know it's there, then no. And I think it could be improved on. I mean, we're seeing tons of tourist maps all over the world. I mean, they're everywhere, especially for small towns. So I want it to be fun and interesting too.
Okay.
I wasn't aware the town map existed, the visitor center, but if it's updated annually and looks fairly comprehensive, yeah, it seems a bit of reinventing the wheel, but that's all I've got.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So yeah, since it was a discussion item, we don't need to move it to an action item unless anyone wants to move it to an action item. Claudia, I'll reach out to Normandy, and maybe there's a way the town and the visitor center and you can work together on it to update what's already in existence and make it more creative or something until we have the wayfinding stuff in, when we will definitely want to be branding all the maps and everything we're handing out with the DDA logo and information, I would imagine. Does anyone else have any thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back around to one of the things that was in the AIM as far as any way that the DDA could help defray some of these costs and what we think about that aspect of this.
I think if we already have a map in town and there's any way we can update it with ideas that someone else has, Claudia's ideas or even some illustration stuff, that it would be great to work together instead of trying to have several different things out there when if the town was involved and the DDA was involved, we could pay to print a whole bunch of these and get them to every business and not be asking people to print them off their own printers. That's my thought, because what I'm working on isn't going to come out as well. This could potentially be out there. But if town has more of what they have and all we need to do is get them to the businesses, that's something that we could also help with.
So maybe Claudia, we could bring this as an action item for the next meeting with more information and input from you.
Oh, sure, that's fine.
That would be great.
Great, thank you. If there are no further comments, let's move on to the next discussion item, which is the draft intergovernmental agreement between the DDA and the town of Nederland, and Kate will be presenting that.
Hi, everyone. All right, so attached you'll see last month we discussed working with our attorney on a draft, what these are called. We went through the semantics of what they're called, but typically what they're called are intergovernmental agreements when they're between two agencies like the Downtown Development Authority and the town of Nederland. So that's where the naming comes from. And this is a very rough draft. This is meant to get our discussion going. And so he's included, based on the feedback that he's had previously and on discussions with me, some base ideas here. And so that's what you're kind of seeing is just the working draft. And I'm really interested to know if there's things you don't feel that need to be in there, if you feel that some things need to be added, or you want some things spelled out very clearly, like what exactly do we have to go to the Board of Trustees for, those sorts of things, like how much into the weeds that we want to get on certain items, because some items it might not be necessary, where others we may feel that we do really want it very clear in the IGA how the process works. And so after we've kind of worked through that, then I'm wondering if after our comments, if you're ready to propose to move on the draft to the Board of Trustees, or if you're really ready to move the draft on to back to Paul more for comment and us keep working on it. So kind of figuring out what our next steps will be with that. But I just thought the beginning of this is just, here's a draft for us to work from and get some comments and get your temperature on. And I'll go back and work with our attorney on those comments.
This is Ron. I'm not ready to move this anywhere near an action item. I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to put into it and put in writing. And so for that reason, I'd like to see us move it into a discussion item for the next meeting also.
Okay. Are you going to can you share with us what you'd like to add so that I can start working on that?
I haven't had a chance to go over it completely yet, so I don't want to do it right now, but I'll certainly work on it during the ensuing month.
Okay.
This is Rhea. One of the things I think it might be good to talk about in this, and I didn't see it, was this whole idea of these resolutions that we have to pass. Because and I'm not sure I still quite get it. We pass a budget annually and say we're going to spend this much money on this and that. And then we have to go through and do a resolution and vote on it again individually. And I feel like at least with the public art stuff this summer, it's like I felt like, okay, we already allocated all this money, but then we had to have the Board of Trustees have this other resolution to kind of put in writing that, yeah, we're going to go through with this mural. And it seems to me it's I know there's checks and balances, and the DDA is not the town exactly, but I think there needs to be clarification on this whole resolution process, because it does kind of slow things up a little bit. Anyway.
Thanks, Rhea. So I will say, the process that you outlined is really just how governments interact. So even when you're in the government, so I'll use an example from my previous job when I granted money for the city of Boulder. So yes, we would tell the city of Boulder, hey, we're going to spend all this money out of this fund this year. We're looking at these types of projects. But then when it was time to actually grant that money, it's a matter of going back and saying, hey, this is exactly what's happening with it. This is the budget. It's just another check and balance and transparency. And I totally understand what you're saying. That's why in a perfect world, like public arts, you're right, there was a lot of due process put in there because of how things went and how things came down. But in the future, it wouldn't be like that. We would really try to make sure that it was just a one-stop shop, that it came to the DDA, it goes to the BOT, and then that's it, and it moves forward, not going back and forth 2 or 3 times, which is what public arts actually did. So I totally understand what you're saying, and I don't know if I'm kind of helping clarify it. It's just more, it is kind of good process, but that's something that we could put into there and see, you know, how much process there really needs to be. What do we both agree on between Board of Trustees and DDA? That's kind of
actually your explanation was great, and I think it would be good to put in there because
okay.
And I didn't see it in there, so excuse me if it's in there. And I do have to say there's a lot of stuff in there that I didn't quite understand. But I'm not sure, you know, it's getting kind of late. I'm not sure it's really the time to kind of go through it paragraph by paragraph or why it's in there. But that's my comment so far.
And again, this is just the first time, and Ron has already moved that. I had a feeling this will be a discussion item again next month, and that's great. You know, we don't want to rush this, and I don't want to rush anyone. That's why my questions in there are just to kind of frame us in the aim. But you by no means have to keep moving this at some sort at a pace you're not comfortable with. Really, what you're doing right now, all of you kind of giving me your thoughts and feedback, help me work with the attorney to get something better.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, again, I don't want to get, as you said, it's getting late. I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but that 4.11, and specifically as it spells out fund, you know, how the tax revenue and is going to go to certain funds and how it can be spent, and referencing statutes that I haven't had a chance to dig into, but you know, that's just one thing that I need to look at more in detail. A lot of legal minutia in this to go through. But
so we are definitely paying him for the legal minutia, but I think what's most important to me, which you guys are already kind of pulling out, is what are the big picture things for you? There's the things that cover us, which, you know, the legalness, but I think it's what do you want to clearly be communicated in this? What are things that you have felt over your durations on the board that need to be crystal clear in this document? Because some stuff is, yeah, you're just going to want to reference this and reference that, but some things like what Rhea brought up, you know, like the process is this, the process is that, like, where do you want that black and white?
I'm going to make one item that I would like to discuss with the board, and that is the approval process. I think is very proper. If we're going to take a project and borrow the money from the town to do the project, it's just like borrowing money from a bank. Bank is going to want to know what you want to do with it to the last degree, and we should comply with that kind of requirement if we borrow the money from the town. But if we borrow money from a private lender or from a bank other than the town, I don't really think we need to go to the Board of Trustees for approval for that project, probably because it wouldn't be of any great monetary significance, but it's just another step that we could reduce to a lot simpler procedure. So that's going to be one of the things I want to discuss in the future. Thank you.
I had a few things. This is Steve Carra. And as Andrew was saying, I have several sentences and clauses and things that I either don't understand or feel like we need to change a little bit. And I think that if it's okay with everyone, I would just make these notes to Barbara and Kate by email, and they could get back to Paul Benedetti about it rather than having to hash it all out here. But the one thing that, for me, that I think the crux of this whole agreement and the reason for it is, as I see it, from my tenure on the board for several years now, has been that I think the DDA feels like the BOT kind of oversees and gets in the weeds on things that they don't really have any say in, or any stake in, and that they're not I think it undermines our authority, and I feel like that's happened for several years now, where the Board of Trustees is kind of treading on the DDA for things that we feel aren't the purview of the BOT. And so for me, this agreement, and I think so many of these sections here, there's no contest between the two parties, between the town and the DDA. It's just a given, and it's nice to have them memorialized in a document. But I don't think that will help us with the overall issue of, just what is the purview of the BOT, what authority and control do they have over the DDA? And I think that's what has, brought this to the point it is, where we feel like it would be more smooth working together if we had an agreement on such things. So for me, it's really about section 4.4, the standard of review. And personally, I think the only way to really have this document help us in that regard is to state specifically, which areas the Board of Trustees in a town does have jurisdiction over the Downtown Development Authority of the town. And I think Paul Benedetti is in a good position to enumerate, if not all of those, at least many of them. And I feel like if we had those laid out in this document, then it would help this board and this BOT board, but also in the future, anyone could refer back to this and say, oh yeah, the BOT definitely needs to approve this, type of affair or this type of action. And oh no, the BOT has no jurisdiction over this type of action. And I think that's what this agreement will help both of our boards with. So my point really tonight is that, and I'll follow up by email with Kate and Barbara with a little more detail, but I think that we really need to enumerate and call out the particular instances. And again, it won't be all of them, and there are some vagaries in between the statutes, but the vast majority of them I think could be stated very clearly. And I think that would help this document tremendously to do what we want it to do, to minimize the friction between the two boards. So that's my main input.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Great, thanks. And let's just go around again. Rhea.
I really don't have anything else to add. Thanks.
Thank you. And Andrew.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you. Ron, do you have anything additional to add?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Danielle.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. And Steve Roundtree.
I just want to thank Steve for kind of pulling it into plain English. I feel like that kind of like hit the core of the actual issue versus reading through kind of the draft agreement here. So thanks for translating it and kind of calling out, I think, what the goal is. So no other comment beyond that.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And Steve Carreau, then Kate will direct this all back to Paul Benedetti. Do we want to bring this back as a discussion item next month?
I think that would be
Vote for that,
great.
yes.
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful and necessary, because Paul, I think, certainly will edit this and, add things and change some stuff. But also, I would just encourage all of us, if we can get any copy of this earlier, to, just to reach out to Barbara or Kate or anybody else for more clarity. So the next discussion, perhaps could really nail it down, and from there, Paul could just wrap up a few issues and get the draft ready to where the two boards would have something to meet and review. So that's my input.
So I'll take all the feedback right away to Paul, and he will probably turn it around pretty quickly. And I can send it individually out to everyone, and we can each just have a conversation. And so if you don't have any questions, or you just want to ask me about some stuff, or you want me to walk you through different parts of it, I'm very happy to do that. So if that will help the next discussion, because I'm not trying to put you guys on any sort of clock. You're not on any sort of clock to get this accomplished. So, but I do want it to not feel like, I want you to feel like you're having fruitful conversations. So I do think that it would be helpful for me to send that draft well before and work it that way with you all, so that when you come back together, we can really, like Steve said, just hit the high points there and make sure that we're all on the same page. And we may even decide that we feel comfortable with maybe having Paul be on the next call to join us for the discussion. Obviously I just haven't had him come to everything because we have to pay for that. And so I'm trying to be save his time like that for when we're really at the final stages, and we really want him to be there right with us when we're having conversations, maybe with the board of trustees or even us as a group. But that's really my thought, that right now we can work it together like this.
Perfect. Thanks, Kate. So we'll look for this to be sent back out to us after Paul has a chance to update it with the suggestions everyone has mentioned, or anyone has sent by email as well.
Yeah. So when I do this, I will hold off. I'm checking in with Paul tomorrow, but I will hold off on sending him a full list of our edits until next Tuesday or Wednesday. Does that give people time to get me things? I guess I'm kind of speaking a little more to Steve, who said that he wanted to send some information. But if anybody else has, noodles on it a little bit and comes up with anything, I want to give you some time to get back with me, so that then I'll give it to Paul, and then I would assume I'll see if he can do it in about a week, and then I'll send it back to you. So then hopefully that's giving about 2 weeks or so before the meeting that you guys have to review it and look at it, and we can talk about it if you'd like to meet on it.
Great, thank you. That sounds like a reasonable turnaround for all of the information to get to you and to him and to back to us.
Yeah, hopefully. So we'll work towards that.
Great. Thank you, you guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And it looks like, Steve, you're up next on the wayfinding.
Oh, great. You know what? I printed it out. Let me just run up really fast right upstairs. I'll be right back. Sorry. All right. So yeah, I'd like to have a just discussion to give us feedback and direction to merge to move forward with the wayfinding project. And we had sent out the survey and had it out for about 1.5 months. And we got, I think it was 69 responses from a wide variety, of groups of people. So I think Barbara and I at least felt like it was a pretty good response. And John Bozio from Merge gave us sort of a summary graph there that's an attachment, and hope y'all could look at that. but I think that some of the surveys, the sort of the summaries, is that it seemed like most of the responses or the majority were, saying that public parking signage and business directory listings and pedestrian directional signage were some of the top needs that were identified by the survey. And one of the main things for the survey that John Bozio had wanted to gain from the survey was kind of which of those 3 or 4 sign options were preferred. And it seemed very clear. I think there's a graphic in that chart that shows that option number 2 was, really the favorite, but that there were several comments about the colors of that. If we could warm it up or have a little pop of color so it's not so cool and plain. But it did seem like option 2 was a clear favorite. And then also it seemed like the survey showed a majority of the respondents were favoring the digital/website, and they were more in favor of an app. So there were a bunch of responses that favored digital kiosks. So I guess that, we're trying to get a little more clarity about really what John told me on the last call last week was that what he really is looking for from our board in order to move to the next step is he said really if we could let him know what we were comfortable with as a budget for phase 1 and potentially phase 2, that, and we may have more than 2 phases to this, but he said that that would help him a lot to be able to recommend to us what we should do with that amount of money at this stage based on the feedback, and particularly about which sign elements, or as he calls them, programming for the sign elements. And so it would be, vehicular signs, pedestrian signage, the potentially the type of business directory signs that might be at the end of First Street and over by the B&F Plaza. So he was just looking for some type of budget numbers that he could then put into the mix and figure out what phase 1, should end up being, and then phase 2. So I guess that's what I'd like to hear from the board really is, potentially what we think are the most important. We have the survey results, but also to get the board's input on that. And then one other part, I think the second question before the board was not as important, but it was just whether to hash out a little more whether we felt like digital kiosks or non-digital kiosks would be better, and would we want digital kiosks in addition to or instead of a digital app? So it's a lot to discuss, but I think if we focus more on the first number 1 question, and Barbara can lead this and go around the group and kind of see where we are as far as what the budgeting looks like, because then John can come back with ideas for what that looks like for phase 1. And just to mention that we had on our budgeting work several months ago, we had come up with $150,000 budget for wayfinding for 2022. So that's just a note that not that we have to spend that or that we couldn't spend more, but that's what we've budgeted.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? How much do we have budgeted?
$150,000 for 2022.
And that's for the implementation of the creation of the signs, because is that right? Not design fee, right?
No, it would be more for it would be several parts. That would part of what the next steps with merge would be is actually getting production ready designs for the signage that we decide on. So that would be in addition to the current contract with Merge. That would be a new thing that they would do. And then from there, they would help us put it out to bid for the signage. So we would need design work from Merge, or potentially from another company, but I believe Merge would be the best one to work with to get production ready engineered plans for the various signs that we've decided we should have for, let's say, for phase 1.
I don't know. It must be getting late because I totally blanked out on what you said. So let me just back up, and I'm sorry that I've forgotten some of the details. How much are we paying Merge right now, or what's their contract for about ish?
I think it's
60,000?
about 23,000.
23,000, and that's to kind of get the initial phase of this completed in terms of picking the overall design and what should be on the signs type of thing.
Yeah, and what the placement of the signs is the one thing that he still hasn't gotten for us.
The placement
is
of the signs, will it include the specs, like construction ready specs that we can
It
submit?
won't.
It won't
It-
include specs. Okay.
No.
This is
it would
just
have
overall planning. Okay.
Yeah, and it would, as far as design goes, it would have like a, I don't believe it covers any of the production ready designs, but it would have a very finalized design look and feel.
Okay.
But it wouldn't have the engineering behind it in the drawings.
And then this $150,000 for 2022, that is for creation and implementation of the signs, whether it's Merge or another contractor, correct?
Yeah,
No.
Merge doesn't make signs, so
Right.
they won't be making them. But that the next phase would be covering the design of them for production ready work.
Seems to me
blueprints.
$150,000 in addition to the 23 is insane for just design of signs. Or am I
No,
misunderstanding?
Rhea, it's not just for design. I was still talking.
Sorry.
I was just including what it has. So it's going to be primarily for the production and installation of the signs, but it also covers the production ready engineered blueprints for them.
Okay. So we're still in this first $23,000 phase.
Yes.
And they're awaiting our decision on things. Okay, those are my questions so far, and I'll just wait in the queue for comments.
Okay.
Thanks, Rhea. And Steve, I just had one quick question. Have they researched our sign codes yet? Because that was something that we've been asking for many months. And knowing whether or not we can even do the signs is really important as part of this process, and what the allowment will be before we have them do anything else. And I think we asked for that in May or June, and I haven't seen that information come in that they've researched it and know exactly whether or not we can do these signs that we're talking about.
Yes, it's a good point. In our committee, we should check in with Merge on that and make sure that they're, aware of the sign code. I think Miranda, when I had reached out to her before the last meeting, had sent over the sign code, and I believe I forwarded that on to John at Merge. But yeah, we should definitely check in with him, so when he is giving us any of the basic designs of them, that we know that they're all allowable. And yeah, so that's all I can say right now.
Great, thank you. And
Sure.
Andrew.
Yeah, so I just, and kind of to echo what Rhea said, I think one thing I don't know, I'm looking at the presentation on 8/11/21, and so for example, in what are the costs if we said, oh yeah, the app, phone app looks great. Does Merge build the app, and do they host that and keep updating it, and how much does that cost? Or without, I'm trying to wrap my head around what we're paying for, as far as design and proposal of, whether it be mobile app or the, looking at this wheel here of like, okay, actual fixed signage or um, kiosks or a website or a mobile app, are they in their fees, are they building the digital stuff, or would they just say, well, here's the whole plan, and you've got to find a company to build the app and do that, and then X, Y, and Z, and then here's the blueprints, and we've got to get things bid out by a sign fabricator, installer, etc. So I'm just still trying to wrap my head around those costs and what merge is, um, you know, bandwidth or capacity is on the digital side, or if they don't, just like they don't build signs, do they not build websites and mobile apps?
Correct. They do not. They're just a design company, and they're what our first part of the contract is really just to have them help us get through the idea of what does Netherland, what's the best fit for Netherland for signage and a whole wayfinding program. They don't produce anything as far as actual signage or apps or websites. But John has said that they have a lot of contacts with sign fabricators, and that for the next part of the work, if we go with them or if we went with someone else, they would produce the production ready blueprints themselves and have them, well, probably not all in-house, but do all that and have all the engineering done. And then they would help with the putting it out to bid process and reviewing the bids with us. But they don't
So
produce anything or build anything.
have they eaten through the 23,000, or is there still?
There's the last deliverable that they have on that is the what they call the programming. And so that's where they say that in an ideal world, this is where you should have your parking signs and your parking ID signs and the kiosks and all that. And they work with us on coming to that. But the programming is, I think, the last step of this first contract. And
Okay.
they still haven't given us that as far as how many of various signs and where they should be. And then from that, it'll be constrained by our budget. If we say, well, all this is going to cost 300,000, we want 150,000 for 2022, let's say, then they would scale back what what he said is they'll over program. They'll say with an unlimited budget, this is what we would do for the proper signage for the town for our needs. And then based on our budget, they would scale that back.
Right. I mean, given the response of the survey, directional sign. Yeah, I'm just kind of, thinking of something that so often happens in construction after design, is especially when the design company isn't part of the construction process, is we get really great designs that cost way more than the client was planning to spend. So that's just my only fear. But as you said, it could be scaled back. Um, that's great. But I wonder if there's a way where, we can kind of steer them. If they know if our budget's 150,000, and you know, so that we're not getting a bunch of stuff that gets put out to bid to get, you know, $500,000 estimate back. That's all. That's all I've got.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's a good concern, and I feel like they're be somehow in the ballpark with what they're, the design documents and the construction documents. I mean, that they would have a sense of what the bid should be coming back at, and it won't be, totally dialed in, but I think they'll have a good ballpark sense of it, just because that's, kind of what they do with all their clients.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve and Andrew. Let's see. Ron, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I do not.
And Danielle.
Yes, thank you. For the phases 1 and 2, I don't know what the budgets would be for it, but the examples I would like to see that seem most important are the vehicular signage for parking and for destinations. We have an idea of where our best parking is, and we definitely have our destinations. So I would like to see those projected. I don't think we want a digital kiosk. I think that's going to be too high of a cost to maintain. I definitely like that Barbara and Claudia are working on visuals. We're already looking at getting visuals out to the town. I think we should utilize what we come up with in the next month or so and what Barbara comes up with in the next couple of months to apply those designs to this. And that will include the town and what people are already working on instead of looking elsewhere for work to be done. I definitely like the idea of a digital app instead of the digital kiosk. I believe Barbara was also working on digital maps for online. And another note I wanted to throw out there on cost effectiveness and working with our community was I'm going to bring it up to Ned Public Art also to see if gateway signs could be something Ned Public Art helps with, and working with Merge, maybe coming up with something that we could fit a mural into that matches the design that they're going to put together. And last, on the note of the designs, it looks like people prefer number 2, which has the stonework, but prefer number 1 with the warm colors. So if we could get the design of the stonework with the wooden colors instead of the metal, and just change the color to what the colors in number 1 are, and get a finalization on that is what I would like. So if that input helps, that would be great. And I'm glad to see this moving along too. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. And Steve Roundtree.
Yeah, I think on the phases, the vehicular signage for parking feels like something that's probably a really important first phase there, and something that probably doesn't change and need to be updated as much. So it would be something that we'd be able to like move forward with that isn't going to instantly need to be refreshed. That feels like a really big priority, because the other piece is if people just drive by, the rest of the signs don't matter. So I think focusing on that to really get at something that maybe has a longer lifespan and a bigger impact as the initial focus, and see what's left after that. No other comments after that.
Thanks, Steve. And let's see, do we have further discussion from anyone else before we open it for public comment? Rhea?
Yeah, I have several comments. In terms of priorities of what kind of signs we should do, I agree with Steve Roundtree. I think number one should be parking. Then the business directories could be number two. And then, or two or three would be the park identities. And I'm kind of referring to, there's one slide in our packet showing the different kind of signs, the different categories. Gateways are very expensive, and I feel like we have a gateway already. It's the big mining head wall that Tom Hendricks put up, and I don't want to see anything happen to that. I do hope that the design that Merge comes up with will sort of go with that in some way, and it won't be exactly the same. And I agree with Danielle's assessment of the number two design, but with the warm colors. You know, I see this thing as these signs, these physical signs constructed well, could last decades and decades. I hear what Andrew's saying about cost, but I don't want to say, let's not do any native stonework because it's going to cost too much. I want to see stonework. I want to see natural materials. Like, we're spending a lot of money on design, and I want to get something that looks really good. And if we have to really phase it out over time, in order to afford it, so be it, you know, within reason. And then in terms of budget for 2022, the 150 to 200, I mean, yeah, I think that's what it's going to cost to get it off the ground. So I'm comfortable with that. But I think that Merge can help us once we kind of give us, you know, the final design. Hey, this is about what a kind of sign like this is going to cost you. And then we can refine it, because I don't really have a good concept of that. And then electronic stuff. I am totally against electronic kiosk. I'm sorry, guys. I think it's a total waste of money. I think there's all kinds of technology issues. Who's going to update what's going to be on the kiosk, our weather? And I just don't, I'm always trying to get my kids off of screens. I don't want a big screen kiosk in the middle of town. So I'm sorry, guys. I just don't like it. An app is fine, but I think we should really focus, depending on what the cost is, develop that. But again, long term, who's going to be updating that app? I think we really need to focus on the physical signs. And so, sorry, I'm on a motion sensor in this office. I keep turning off. But those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Rhea.
Great, thanks, Rhea. Do we have, let's open this up to public comment. Do we have any public comment? Nope. Seeing and hearing none, since this is a discussion or informational, no, I'm sorry, discussion item. And we don't have to make any final decision on it tonight. Steve, what are you looking for to take back to Merge tonight? Do we need to move this to an action item?
No, I don't think we need to. It was really just to check the pulse of the DDA, and to especially what John was stressing to me is that if we knew what our budget was, that would help him tremendously to tailor all the information that he's been receiving so far and the programming that he still needs to do for us, for the where the sound, how many of various signs and where they would go. He said that would help a lot to break out into phases, as well as the type of things that Rhea was just saying, you know, in terms of, and Steve Roundtree, like, you know, noting that vehicular parking signs should definitely be in our first phase, you know, that's a very important part of the project. So I think that's sort of it. But I guess if we could get back to some sort of number that the board feels okay with, that we could tell John, you know, that for 2022, this is our budget, and that would be for phase one. And then with that, he would be able to know the programming and the cost, you know, average cost of signs, and be able tell us what he thinks, how we should spend that money the best way for phase one. So I guess if Barbara, maybe, if we could put it out to the various board members just to see if the 150,000 that we have in the budget, if that seems like a reasonable amount, to tell John that, like this is the maximum budget that we have for phase one. And I guess, we are working a little bit blind because we don't know the actual cost per sign yet, and we don't know the programming yet. So he'll come back to us with that, I think, and, an idea, and then it'll be up to the board to say, oh, okay, 150,000 will get us this far. Is that good, or do we need to try to raise the budget, or is that more than enough for phase one, what we want to accomplish? So I think we'll come back, after this, we'll be coming back with the programming and some budgeting numbers for signage. And then from there, we can guide him again. That's how I understand it.
And Steve, since, just to clarify, he's going to give us information on what it would take to do the signs, no actual work on the signs. So wouldn't we want him to give us as much information as possible, even if we decided later not to use it, instead of having to go back and ask him for additional information later? If we've already paid for this part of the process, is that correct?
Yes, and that's his intention as well. I didn't state it very well, but with the programming, he said that he's going to he always over programs a town to be like, this is the, the maximum number of signs that would be effective in the town. And then from there, we kind of decide how to scale it back. And the committee, we'll go back to him and try to press for a little bit more unit costs, or at least run through the prior unit costs from a couple meetings back, and just, see if those still seem accurate to him. So, because that's an important part for us as well. If a vehicular parking sign costs $8,000, and we have 20 of them right there, we've blown our budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If what we're talking about or looking for is to go back to him and say, our budget for 2022 is 150,000, and of that, you want to allocate whatever 70% of that towards vehicle parking and 30% towards something else, or maybe it's 60 20 20. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Is that really what you're looking at?
Yeah, I think that's in line with what we're planning to be going through here.
Okay. Well, I mean, given we've had, I guess, talked through a budget already and it's established, I don't see any reason why not to tell him that. Then he can, backwardize his programming based on that, and then give us estimates of prior, unit costs, and then we can see what we could actually afford for that. I mean, that seems like the course of action, I think, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and one other thing that John didn't specifically task me with, but I think would be really helpful, is the type of information that Steve Roundtree and Rhea had chimed in with, as far as, for phase one, what do we think are the top objectives with signage?
I agree with Rhea on the no digital kiosk. I'm in the parking being a priority. And again, it's without knowing what these things cost and how many are going to be called out. Like you said, if there's $8,000 signs and 20 of them, and that's it, and then there's nothing, no room for an app or what else was on there. So maybe, I think be nice to hear from him what he thought was realistic, what deliverables could be achieved for 150,000.
Right.
That's like, I guess, that would be my question.
Yeah, And, and the other part, like from his, this is a very basic idea, but from his expertise, he would, say like, if we need 20 parking signs, then we also need, whatever it is, maybe 10 or 7 parking identification signs, so that he's not going to just have parking signs pointing somewhere and then you get in that area and you have no idea what parking lot you're looking at, or is this a parking lot, or is it just a dirt field in Ned? So,
Right.
that's the
There's
kind of
like
thing
the
he'll be.
primary, secondary, and tertiary that will link up
Yeah,
to the parking signage.
yeah,
Call it the physical parking package,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
that's, sort of some of the expertise that he brings that, some is intuitive, but a lot isn't necessarily. So he'll
Mhm.
be incorporating all that in what he brings back to us.
Are we comfortable saying that we want him to bring us directional signage, information about an app, not a kiosk, which were all part of the phase 1 idea, and whether or not that could be achieved with the 150,000? Is that enough to give him now to bring something back to us in December?
I think it is. Yeah, I think that would be kind of what he's looking for.
And the app was one of the things. I know a few people don't like the app idea, but that is the number one thing that was requested, I believe, through the survey, was to have an app so people could find things, and not a kiosk, which I agree. It does seem, with our weather and everything, it just doesn't seem like a great idea. But if we
Right.
give that direction, Steve, and you bring it back to him, or we bring it back to him, maybe we can bring more information back for the December meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. And does anyone have any further questions? Was there any other public comment on wayfinding tonight? Okay. Hearing none, let's move on to our informational items. My very small chair report was in the packet, and I don't think that I need to go through it step by step unless anyone has any questions. Ron's packet is also, or information is also in the packet. Ron, do you have anything to add to that, or does anyone have any questions for Ron?
I have nothing to add.
I would like to ask or speak up. I've gotten a couple of questions about the conflict of interest. Conflict of interest form through the state of Colorado, and I'm going to send out the troubleshooting guide, because I think that there are some terms that they're using that are confusing. Like I know one of the ones I get a question about is the financial consideration, and that's just the amount of money. And so I'm going to send out the frequently asked questions to the group, and then please let me know if you're having an issue on anything particular, and I can work with you on that.
Hey, Kate, I have a quick question on that. I was under the impression we didn't have to do one every single year, that we could do one once and it might be good for a number of years. Is that true?
I don't know that for sure. I can do some looking into that. I can understand what you're saying, that maybe with each time that each term of your board that you state your conflicts, but I can also see why this would be an annual thing, just because things might change. So I will do some looking into that for you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. That brings us into the executive
I
director.
would add, I know the statute, and cumbersome it is, you have to do it every year. There's a $3 charge. You just go online and fill out the form, and you're all okay. But it's very important that you do it.
Thank you, Ron.
I think I've done it this year. Do you have access? Is it like public record, Kate? Do you know if everyone's caught up on it?
I don't. Some people have sent it to me when they've completed it. I don't know if it's public record or not.
Okay.
Yes, it is public record.
All right, I'll look and dig back in my emails and send it to you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Kate. Kate's executive director report is in the packet as well. Kate, do you have anything to add to it, or does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I'll keep things moving. So if anybody has questions, you can ask me, or we can keep moving on.
Great, thank you. And Miranda, town staff report.
Same. I mean, mine's in the packet. I think the one thing is we are going to do another email push to kind of get some masks. We ended up getting the final of our shipments. So I think we have 10,000 masks. So we're not necessarily going to limit how many businesses can get. So please come get some yourself or pass that message along that we have plenty of masks at Town Hall to share.
Great, thank you, Miranda. Do we have any other committee reports? I had included a few things in my chair report, so I wasn't going to break anything further down. And I think we've touched on most of this, but maybe Danielle, do you just have a quick update on public art, because we see it happening magically in Wild Bear?
Yes.
Anything? Yeah.
We are having a meeting tomorrow, a workshop before our official monthly meeting. Barb, I will be in touch with you about getting an interview set up for the paper. And sorry, I'm getting a little spacey. The Business Connection building was bought by Rasham, and she told me over the phone that she would like the mural up. So Greg and I are brainstorming on how to make sure it is safe for the weather and transportable and touch-upable. And we are hoping to get it up before the new year. So that's the goal, which I think is really exciting. Were there any questions from you guys?
No, just to say that's, yeah, it's really exciting. And I saw a little bit of a video of the painting going on, and that was really cool to see.
Oh, and he's there. Danielle, what are the hours that he's there? 3 days a week. You can go in and check it out and talk to him, and it's just really cool. It's really
Yes.
neat how it's coming together.
He is there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 11. He will be there this Saturday because he is working with Wild Bear and doing lessons. And he is really hoping that more people would stop in. He keeps forgetting how big of a deal COVID is, but he was hoping that more people would be involved in watching the process. So moral support, if you guys could bring your families in at a safe time with masks and just enjoy what he's doing in person.
Hey, Miranda, is that something that you can put on the news feed on the town's website, or maybe you have?
No, we haven't, but we definitely can, and on our social media. Danielle, would you want to just send me, if you want, like a blurb and any photos you have?
Sure, I'll collect some stuff for you, Miranda.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, I think Steve was talking about the same thing I saw, and it's on Wild Bear. It's Wild Bear has it posted of him painting, kind of a time lapse of him painting. That's pretty cool.
Yes, Wild Bear is doing very good at publicizing that. I've been sharing some of that on Nederland Public Art, and I'm still learning how to utilize those venues.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions for public art or any other committee reports?
I'll speak to beautification a little bit. Barb and I have been doing some research, and we will be advertising a new position to hire a gardener for next summer. And at the appropriate time, we will share those details with you. You know, I think the key for getting big, beautiful flowers will be to ask the nurseries to grow them out much larger, since our growing season is very short. And I actually wanted to get everybody's input, who's on the board, or if there's any member of the public. Our pots in the past have been of a diversity of different flowers, which is interesting, but I feel like in all my travels in the mountain towns in Colorado, a lot of them are just these cascading petunias of various colors, and they just seem like they're just a really big bang, just a big bright splash of color. I'll buy it. They're very boring, but I don't know if most of the public cares. And so, you know, we're gonna be coming on the time where we're gonna have to put the orders in. And so do we want to just go with the like cascading petunias with maybe a difference with something else in the center? Or do you want to keep going with sort of a more interesting design? Does anybody have any comments on that? Whether you're on the board or a member of the public, matters not to me.
I just want to reiterate that I have talked to, and Rhea has talked to several towns, and I've talked to several towns, including Blackhawk and Central City, which have a lot different budget than we do. And their flowers are gorgeous and they're very simple. And that's what Rhea's talking about, is something that kind of simplifies what we're doing, at least for next year, to check it out and see if we can make it better than it has been and not have the maintenance requirements that we've had and so many different plants and everything else. I think that it would be great to go with the cascading petunias with some kind of centerpiece if needed and move forward from there. And hopefully we find a gardener that really is excited about it and wants to take care of them the way that we need them taken care of for next year.
I think it's a good idea. You know, I think a lot of people don't stop and analyze the design and everything of a flower pot as they're walking by or driving by. And I know the petunias they do look pretty robust usually and colorful. And if they grow well up here, you know, I think it's good to simplify and have something that grows well. And we can always change it the following year.
I also like the idea of the petunias. If we could benefit from the simplicity of that and then use some of the other brain power towards the native gardens as a background, that would be pretty
Definitely.
awesome.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And
Um,
Maria, I had one other question about your report. I think it was in your report where you mentioned that Mike Reichert had donated the remainder of some hours that he had spent working, and I wasn't sure what that was about.
Well, yeah, Mike really wanted to kind of, Mike felt really bad because he ended up buying a house. He and his wife bought a house somewhere in Gilpin County and ended up moving, and he felt like he didn't do a good job this summer and didn't really keep on it as much as he wanted. And so he was just, and I told him he didn't have to do it, but he really felt like he didn't want to bill his time. So that's where we're at. I think Mike is a great guy. I think we should utilize his expertise when the next person comes on, because I think he's learned a lot about, you know, like where the water comes from, where all the pots are and all that stuff. But that's kind of the background for that. Does that I answer your question?
Yeah, I just didn't know what it was. It was
Yeah.
an interesting statement in there.
And unless there's another particular comment about the flowers, I did want to just say one other thing about beautification, and that was, you know, Barb and I have been made aware of the Veterans Memorial Garden, which is between the reservoir and Chapita Park along the path. Do you guys know where that is? It's this beautiful little planting of little annual flowers that a woman named Hanamachi donates the flowers every year, and she and her friends volunteer their time to water that garden every day or every other day in the summer and maintain it. And it's quite the commitment. And she would really like it if we or the town could take over. She's happy to donate and plant the flowers, but the watering. And unfortunately, that little Veterans Memorial Garden, which by the way would be great to get on that town map that Miranda sent around, or any of the maps, because it is a Veterans Memorial Garden. It would be great if we could start including that. And it is outside the DDA district as far as I know. So this may not be the appropriate venue to mention it, but I just kind of wanted to make a comment about it.
Rhea, where is?
So on the path, like if you're at Chapita Park and you're walking towards the bridge, it was called bridge. It's like the weir where the creek
Yeah.
flows into the reservoir. It's that little tiny garden right there. Before you hit the weir bridge.
Isn't okay. I thought Chipeta Park was within the DDA.
I don't, I'm not looking at the map. That's just what I understood, because if it's something that the DDA can do and we're comfortable taking care of that garden, I say, let's do it. Let's include it for this next person, if we can. But I guess there's just a little concern about spending commercial property taxpayers' money on something outside the district. So I guess maybe we can look into that further. So
I would support that if we find out that it's there. And I wouldn't mind finding a way to support her upkeep if it's not within the district.
okay. Maybe Kate, you can think about that a little bit when you have a chance and if it's appropriate or not. And I can certainly show you the location on the map or.
Oh no, my son loves to run around back there, so I'm very familiar with exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can keep noodling on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And anyways, beautification, lots to do. Not only the annual flower pots, more perennial garden beds. Wouldn't it be great to have more sort of log timber type planters like along First Street or other places? I mean, not a lack of things to do, that's for sure. So hoping for a better year next year.
I will bring more financial information about growing out the flowers to next month's meeting when the one nursery that we contacted is reopened because they're closed right now. So in December, we should have some more information about that. Does anyone else have any other committee reports, questions, comments, other business? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I want to adjourn. I just, as far as Big Springs, Miranda, I don't know if you've seen or heard if Cynthia's gotten the engineering from Tebow. This has been ongoing, still waiting for Tebow's wall engineering, which if it hasn't come to town yet, it hasn't gone to Safe Built yet, and it's still a couple months out from being approved. So I don't see that happening until next spring, but that's all I've got.
So it does, I'm actually just, let me just pull it up in the system really quick. It does look like she uploaded the engineer drawings on the 5th, and then, the Safe Build has the 10-day turnaround, business day turnaround. So it looks like next Friday would be the response deadline.
Okay. All right. Well, there's something happening. Okay, that's good.
They approached me for a story, so they are definitely doing something. Called me today.
All right. Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Miranda. Thanks, everyone. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Right.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.